Yeah, I can't see that you can't. It's just the nature of the work, there's more demands on it. And they're on a scale back and that's just the nature. You start small and you grow into a business that has to do with communications. But maybe part of what you're doing other role players doing genres and network just to see the show.
FYI, I started the stream, but it's on the stream starting soon. The stream, so until it's plenty of users, so and they won't really hear what we're saying, but it is fine. So I'm actually going to step away for 2 seconds to say.
For me, was harder than I was expecting. I had mapped out what I might do, it's What'd you settle on for that?
I decided not to change it for now.
Okay.
Still might, though.
Yeah. Why? I mean, what made you decide not to change it?
Because I still feel like it's a very like the ones I have are really good, but at the same time, I've barely used meta magic. Like I haven't had a chance to
Hmm.
use them for something that like because I have distance spell and twin spell, and a lot of the time when I want to use an important spell or whatever, there's
Hmm.
nothing to twin it to.
Right. All right. Is anybody watching the stream? We should be
And distance spell
live.
hasn't really come up because we're usually pretty close to the enemy.
Yeah, we haven't had very many uh, far away encounters. That's definitely true.
Yeah, so my big thing is maybe I should change out distance spell because it hasn't really come up as much.
Hmm. Hmm. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So, excuse me. Hello and welcome to DnDeBrief. I am your dungeon master for the evening, Sam Dillon, and I'm here with my always wonderful players. So, when I say hello to you, go ahead and introduce yourself and say what character you are playing. Let's start with Karu this time.
Hello, my name's Karu. I am playing Marcel Duran, a Lutrinian storm sorcerer.
Excellent. And David.
Hi, I'm playing Axley Tillingquest, who's a rather mischievous and curious halfling bard.
Excellent. And Nina.
Hi, I play Emerin Ornestra, who is a human storm cleric.
Excellent. And last but not least, Matthew.
Hello, I'm Matt. I'm playing Kono Slemdaff, a Sea Elf Warlock of the Great Old One Pact.
Excellent. Who wants to do a recap? A very fast recap. No one wants to do a recap?
I can do a recap, but I don't know how fast it'll be because a lot happened.
Yeah,
Okay.
We fought a giant dinosaur of some sort that terrified us all and wound up being made out of mud, and apparently some other mud creatures as well that were able to sort of congeal into form one big one. We managed to overcome those, helped in large part by Emerin creating a wall of ice out of nowhere, and Dino went splat against it. After we dealt with all that, um, Konos talked to the chieftain of the Haka and a few other ones about the piece of coral he's been carrying around with him, and got some very interesting history of their culture and their some of their religious beliefs as well. And he's going to have apparently a really hard choice to make, probably in the very near future, about what he does with his coral and maybe how that's going to relate to them. And then we went and started exploring the temple, basically this mud temple that was the Hoka's incubating grounds, and we were trying to clear that out and did some explorations that found that possibly somebody else may have recently been there, but the whole thing was kind of in a state of sort of collapse and disrepair. And we wound up sort of going down into a underground level and came into a room that was remarkably similar to one we found on the Crab Island. Almost exact same details, in fact. Complete with the writing on the wall and the spinning crystal lens.
Okay. Is there anything anyone wants to add to that?
You found a lot
Uh,
of books.
we
Found a lot
did
of books.
find a lot of books. Find a lot of books. There was one interesting thing I think that should be mentioned was we played with the bowl with the water symbols. Got a wave servant,
Mhm.
and Marcel was able to ride it with Mr. Octopus inside the waves water. That was fun.
Yeah.
It also occurred to me later that if the familiar was still in the wave when it came back to the bowl, I'm just imagining it was just splash and I was left with a bowl full of octopus.
Yes, pretty much. Looks like we lost David. I will adjust the screen here and hope he comes back pretty quickly. Not sure what happened there. It always makes there's always a lovely technology issues that make our evenings wonderfully exciting. So let's go there, and when he gets back, we will find out what's going on. Let's see if he comes back really quickly. In the meantime, I will go ahead and show the audience what the temple looks like that you all went into. I posted this for the group on their Discord channel a moment ago, and this is an overview of the main portion of the temple. So just to spend some time rediscussing it and before David gets back. This area up here to the north is the entry hall. Each square here is 10 feet, so this thing is pretty massive.
Oh, wow.
This main room is the main sort of shrine hall, and the blue and purple squiggly lines at the bottom, that's representing the curtains. And this rectangle right in front of that's the dais with the coral shrine on it. And then the two doors here to the right and left lead to the rooms that you found. One of them looked something like a mess hall where people would eat, and one of them had a bunch of crates and boxes, or actually kegs, I think they were, stored, and a rack with some old dowels and whatnot on it. And then in both of these rooms, in the lower sort of middle portion of the southern wall, there's a square right in front of it. That's representing the trap doors that you found. And those trap doors lead to a ring ladder that you crawled down, and then you descended down even further, down some steps, and then down a passageway. And then there was a big thick curtain that led to this current room that you're in. And the current room that you're in is this sort of oddly shaped room with it sort of goes 20 feet down a hallway, and then it sort of stair steps out and opens up. And there are 3 bookcases on the northern wall, and there's a enormous sort of magical sigil item drawn on the floor, and floating above it a few feet in the air it is a lens that is very similar to the one that you found in the room on Crab Island. And then behind that is a sort of smaller shrine that's made of coral. And then the 2 circles that are next to that shrine are braziers that are unlit. And so that's sort of where everyone is. And if I see, was there anything else that I needed to say about that? The last thing that we did before we stopped playing last time was we ended up discussing if I go back to the main screen here. We ended up discussing the fact that on those 3 bookcases, most of the books are tattered and old and look like they'll crumble to dust if you touch them. And in fact, if you do touch them, they do start to sort of degrade and fall apart. But there were 9 items that did not do that. And I think I gave you the names of those items. And then we ended.
Yep.
Yep.
So let me take a very tiny break here to see if David emailed me. I'm not sure what. I wonder if he lost power or something. We'll have the cat stand in for David this evening.
Yeah. This is now David. Who loves rubbing against the mic.
That's
That's his favorite rub spot.
it's a cat magnet.
It's like you have a stick right beside your face. I'm gonna rub it. Every time. No matter how many times I've told him not to.
Right, of course. Oh, you said not to? That means the opposite, right? In cat speak.
And he'll do that thing where he's like pauses just before it and like closes his eyes all, oh, but I'm so cute, and then just rubs it again.
Right, of course. So he did not email me. Let's see. Uh-oh.
I have one suggestion if we want to keep trying to wait and see if he shows
Yes.
up again.
What's your suggestion?
Doing the debrief part first.
Oh, yeah, we
since
could do that.
Get to
Good idea.
last session.
Okay. That's actually a really good idea. So so I posted a list of topics in the Discord for the game. And so the question is, which of those would you like to discuss? So let me read you the list of topics. When I edit this for the podcast, I can actually put it at the end again.
That works.
But no, this is a good idea. So here's the list of topics. If I could get to it, the list of topics is concentration, which affects many of you because you're spellcasters. So the idea of concentration, what breaks it, how do we remember when we have to use it, and all that sort of thing. Prophecies in games, because that came up at the end of last game. Healing mechanics and short rest versus long rest, that came up in the last game. And then something that I thought people might be wondering, because I really took a shortcut and didn't play it out, and that might have felt a little bit unsatisfying to some of the listeners, and maybe even to you as players, was the storm at sea. I didn't roleplay it. I just rolled and said, okay, here's what happened. I didn't really give you much of an option to mediate or ameliorate any of the effects of that. And so that we could talk about. And then what does the DM do when taken off guard, which is a little hint as to why I didn't roleplay that storm. And then changing monster mechanics to make them more interesting, and revisiting the idea of theater of the mind and how you keep adjudicating such a thing, and how you make it so that people don't lose their ability to still have the same sort of idea about what's going on in the game. So those are the topics there. What do you think?
I think they're all interesting. I almost feel like we should just roll a d8 and see which one shows up.
Sure.
Do you want me to?
Sure, let's do it.
6.
Okay, 6. So now I got to go back to that list.
Changing monster mechanics.
All right. Okay, well, that's an interesting one. So, for example, here's why that one's on the list. Last week there was a dinosaur that actually turned out to be a mud creature. And so one of the, of course, there's reasons I did that in terms of the narrative and what's going on in the game, but also then the idea is, well, what do you do? My sort of philosophy is if it's not interesting, if it doesn't make you wonder what the heck's going on, then it doesn't matter what creature's being used. And sometimes I want it to matter what creature's being used. So sometimes the creature needs to have interesting mechanics. And so that's where the sort of idea of those mud creatures being able to meld into one and grow larger rather than when you hit them they break up and grow smaller. That's where that came from. And so the other reason that I like this particular topic and that I think about this particular topic a lot is because, of course, I DM a lot. But um, I I have this other group of players that I run for. Sometimes it's a couple of young teenage boys who are kids of one of my colleagues, and they when they told their mom they wanted to play D&D, and she knew I played D&D, and so she got me uh to run a game for them. And hey, David's back.
Hey.
Hey. um I will fix the video view again here. But anyway, so what happened is they loved the game so much they went to the library, and their library had the monster manual. So they checked the monster manual out of the library, and they like started memorizing all these creature statistics. So they knew that one of the gnolls had 22 hit points and all these other things. And so uh, uh, it kind of helps that I don't just run creatures out of the book, or at least I might describe them a little bit differently, so it's a little harder for them to understand what they're actually facing, because otherwise they've memorized these freaking things.
That's where you also start you have to start like actually rolling monster hit dice.
Right, exactly. So that was, yeah, it was quite funny when it happened, but it was not funny at the same time. So but that's, yeah, they, because that I heard them talking to each other. I took a bio break, and then I heard them talking, and they said, oh no, but that one's only going to have 22 hit points and this, that, and the other. And I said, wait a minute, how do you know this?
So you think?
I mean, and
So
it's even if someone doesn't just like as a player go through the monster manual, if you've been a DM, there's chances that you've used
hmm
certain monsters, and now that
right.
you're a player, you're like, well, my DM side is telling me this one's more important to go down first because it's got this thing, or I don't
hmm
know, things like that, or just it happens eventually that as a player you run into enough of a certain creature that you know that goblins have like 7 hit points
hmm right.
because the goblins show up in so many games and people don't generally change their HP that yeah, okay, so we know exactly how much these have. So okay, well now you're gonna go against different goblins.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
This goblin took the tough feat or something else. It's got a hand crossbow instead of a sling.
Right, right. So David, welcome
Yeah.
back.
Right. Yeah, my modem completely crashed. That took like a full restart to get back
Yeah,
online.
that sucks. So we decided to do the debrief first
Oh, okay,
before we
great.
play. So that's what
All
we're
right.
talking about. We're talking about
Okay.
monsters and monster stats and the creation of different characteristics to maybe throw off players, not to not to trick, right? Like because then of course when I changed something about it, about one of the creatures, then one of those players accused me, oh, you tricked us. No, no, I didn't trick you. I'm
No,
trying to make it challenging.
exactly.
If you walk up to a creature and you know that goblin only has 7 hit points, and you know that it can only do a 1d4 because of whatever weapon it's holding, then
Yeah.
that makes the challenge something different from maybe what was intended. Although I don't
Yeah. Like
know. I suppose you could play that way, and that would be just as fun if that was what your intent was.
well, a great example of that is last session with the dinosaur that was kind of made of mud because that took us all by surprise. We didn't really know what we were dealing with. So
Hmm.
you start to then have to do some creative thinking as to how do I deal with this thing because it's not just this flesh and blood reptile that I can then because once you can fit it into a neat category because we all have experience with the various monster
Hmm.
tropes of fantasy world. So you'll just naturally approach it from that angle like oh
Hmm.
I can use these kind of spells, this kind of weapon. It's nice to
Right.
be surprised and not know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
I feel like another reason to change up monster stats is when you want to use a monster that may be a bit too weak in terms of its normal stats,
Hmm.
but you want to use that kind of monster against a higher level team and still
Hmm.
keep it cat, please. Challenging. It comes to like, well, maybe I need to buff this creature up so that I can still use it, and that's basically another reason for it. Like I've had that happen to me because my party in Dungeon of the Mad Mage has been going like up and down levels. So sometimes they'll
Ah.
fight something on a higher level on a lower level when they've already gone up a couple of
Hmm.
levels. So the they end up fighting, say it happened to me with a boss monster on, I think it was level 4, and they had already gone down to level 6, so I had to kind of level them up a bit so they don't die. So I ended up having to boost things for that fight so that it felt epic, and I managed it with very little changes. And
Nice.
that boss ended up being a recurring boss. They still haven't managed to kill her. They fought her twice already.
So, well, how did you wind up adjusting it? Did you like just change hit points and damage up and down, or take away abilities, or add stuff, or what did you wind up doing?
In this case, I maxed her HP. So I didn't give her more HP. I just maxed the dice, um, which practically doubles her HP. Um, and eventually ended up giving her a couple more spells because she was a spellcaster. Kind of, sort of giving her a subclass because she was a cleric. So I gave her a subclass to give her some more powers. And that was enough. That, and I added a couple more enemies to the fight itself so that
Hmm.
they could not like concentrate, because economy of action
Yep.
um, went
Hmm.
into the favor of the monsters instead of the players,
Right.
and that helped make the battle. Took us like an hour to get through that battle.
Yeah. It's difficult to do that. In fact, well, maybe I won't say that, because it'll affect what you do. But no, it's difficult, because in fifth edition, when there's not an even number of actions on both teams, for example, like if I say it that way, like there's a monster team and then there's the party, that's the other team. If there's not an equal number of actions, it can really sway the battle one way or the other. So just adding or removing a creature or two greatly changes uh, the economics of that battle, much more so than in the past couple of different editions of the game. It's very, very striking in fifth edition because of the way that the numbers are so tightly held along a line. But just adding, even if a creature's easy to hit, there's a chance you're going to miss it. And then if he's alive, that if that creature's alive for another round and they have a chance to hit you, that could completely sway the battle because it might make you have to choose a different action next time if you have to heal yourself or you have to disengage from combat or something. It completely might cause a sea change in the way that the battle works. So that's hard.
And conversely, if you're DMing and you have like one really powerful or one really epically cool monster, it's like okay, it's gonna
Hmm.
do all these things to the players, and then the first round of combat, a
Right.
poorly timed hold person spell goes off,
Hmm.
and
Right.
suddenly your one big monster is just now a pinata for the party to
Right.
kick to
Yeah.
death.
Right. Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
oh man, I spent 2 hours planning this great encounter and they ruined it in
Hmm.
5 seconds. Well, now
Yeah.
what? Well, that's why
Yeah.
minions exist.
Right.
Which
That's
also
why
which brings us
legendary
to
reaction. That's why legendary
Hmm.
resistances exist too.
And
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
which that
Yeah.
actually brings up another debrief point you mentioned discussing, which is like when you as a GM are caught off guard,
Hmm.
like how do you deal with that? Because you have an idea of like the story that you want
Yeah.
to the road you want to go down, right?
Hmm.
You've done all the prep work for it. It's maybe the design for your scenario. How do you
Yeah.
keep it undermined by the players?
So, if it's about, so with regards to monsters, usually when I have a combat planned, or if I have sort of accounted for the party going in a particular direction and therefore possibly have a chance to interact with something, have some sort of encounter, even if it's not combat. The reason that I have that is because there's some knowledge to be gotten from that encounter, even if it doesn't turn into a fight or whatever. It's not just gold or loot or whatever. It's often information that you can get. And so for me personally, I try to always have a reason for that encounter to exist, but some of them aren't. They're how do I say this? They're not necessary, like I put information in multiple different places. That way it doesn't matter if you decide not to go in a certain direction. You'll still have a way to get that information that you would have found in that direction, but just somewhere else, right? But it has to make sense, right? It's not like, oh, well, you're walking along the beach and you find a bottle with a message in it. Oh, this message happens to have to do with everything that you've been dealing with so far. Like that doesn't really make sense. But I try to build in cases where you can always find information. So I have a list of information that at any given time you could find and that might give you clues to something or might help you with something. Um, and that way, if you do something completely unexpected, like I had no clue, I did not plan ahead of time, I can actually respond and throw something at you that might be challenging and that also will have a reward that's worth it because I have this sort of list of, well, here's some things that you need to find out, and I don't yet know exactly how you're going to find them out, but if you end up going somewhere or doing something that I wasn't expecting, I can just give you one of these pieces of information. Um, Sly Flourish, Mike Shea, he wrote the Lazy Dungeon Master books, and he has a couple of different products out. He's a friend of mine, and he calls those secrets and clues. And for every session that he preps, he always puts like he has a list of 10 secrets about every location, and you're not going to learn it all 10 secrets, or you might not learn all 10 secrets, and it's not necessary to learn all 10 secrets in order to accomplish your goals, but they're there so that off the cuff you can always throw something at the party that is going to be useful for them rather than just, oh, you walked over here, let's have an encounter with a Tarask. Oh, what for? Well, 3 of the PCs died, but it wasn't really useful because you didn't learn anything. Like that's not fun necessarily. That's sort of it. I mean, I suppose it depends on the kind of game you're running, but generally I don't run a game that works like that. But I do like having sort of wandering monsters and different encounters that might surprise you or something. So it's sort of like it's akin to I always have a list of names, right? Because that way, if you go somewhere and you meet someone, and I wasn't expecting you to go somewhere, I can immediately come up with a name and a couple of traits for that NPC that, in case they end up becoming a bigger part of the story than I thought or that I planned on, I have it right there. And I don't have to say, oh, hold on, or I don't have to rely on, well, every NPC is named Bob. So then you'll always know that every time you meet an NPC named Bob, it's because I wasn't planning on it. So you don't have to worry about that NPC, right? Like that's not, I don't like to have that happen. Although I did run a game one time where all the NPCs were named Bob on purpose.
Oh boy.
so,
That must have
so
gotten
yeah.
confusing really fast.
I mean, well, it's Bob the Weaver, Bob the Wainwright, Bob the Shipwright, Bob the Bob the Jeweler, Bob the yeah. it was so then they just started calling everybody by their profession. Oh, I have to go to the jeweler. Oh, I have to go to the general store. I have to go to the whatever. So yeah, it was on purpose. It was meant to be a more comedy game, but the reason why the what do you do when the DM is taken off guard, the other reason that was on the list is because of the storm that you hit. I wasn't expecting that. I was actually ready to have you go and make your way most of the way to Cowport. And then I rolled for the weather and I rolled for the storm and all that. And then
And
I
then we all
roll
failed our rolls.
well, I
Yep.
I rolled an encounter. And
Uh,
when I said somebody roll me a d20, and I think Karu rolled a d20 and rolled like a 19, and that was a massive storm. And then you all failed your rolls. And so it was like, oh crap, this is a catastrophic failure. But because I wasn't really expecting it, I really didn't have it in my brain to describe it and make it really like chaotic and narrative and showing the cinematic portions of it. I just kind of said, "Oh, well, there was a giant storm and one of your, 10% of your crew got washed over and that was it." And after the game, that's one of the things that I thought about where I felt like that was a little unsatisfactory from my perspective. I don't know how you felt about it. Um, but it was a little unsatisfying to me because I was so caught off guard by the fact that that happened and then everyone failed their roles and I just was not ready to narrate a storm situation, and which sounds stupid. I mean, I'm running a seafaring game. So that's the other reason I felt like, oh, yeah, I put you on a boat and we're in the middle of the ocean in a sea world, and I'm not ready to describe a storm at sea. That's really like, it's, this is, look, I've been DMing for, since 1985, and I still, it happens to everybody. I got caught off guard and I wasn't ready for it. Um, I pulled out other things, and that's why you ended up going to the Haka Island and all that stuff. But the storm part of that really threw me off. And you know, live and learn. Trust me, I am ready to always narrate a storm at sea now.
Excellent.
There was a similar thing that happened on there's an online campaign called High Rollers.
Mm,
Happened like an episode or two ago. This similar situation. The one of the players was essentially doing downtime carousing
mhm,
with some of the other crewmates, and roles happened, and
mhm.
the absolute something happened that the DM wasn't prepared for. Essentially,
Right.
you rolled that the player wound up inadvertently getting married and didn't realize what had happened. So it totally went that one Vegas movie, like with Bradley
Oh,
Cooper and
yeah, when
whatnot.
I'll wake up,
Yeah.
hangover.
Yeah, the hangover. Yeah, so it basically went all the hangover for about 10 minutes while they kind of got back on track.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. It's I have all these little sort of tips and tricks that I try to use, like I mentioned, a list of names and a list of things that you could learn, and a list of, I have a list of islands, I have a list of people, I have all these sort of little things where if you completely go off in a different direction, I can actually address your desires to go in that direction without having to block you. But still some things happen sometimes that are just, there's no possible way to predict everything, especially with dice. I mean, it's the dice that did it,
Yep.
and I don't
Yeah.
know. So I do not fudge the dice. Um, Even if I'm playing like and I'm not. There's no judgment here. Like, I know a lot of people do. I know some people who fudge dice, and they do it because they have certain narrative drive and they want the game to be
Sure.
cinematic and they don't want to kill people, and I mean, that there's all kinds of reasons. Whether you think they're valid or not doesn't matter. That's not the conversation I want to have necessarily. You can find that it's controversial, so you can find it talked about ad nauseum over and over on all the different platforms. But for me personally, I don't fudge dice. So if I roll a die in it and it crits, it crits. Like, if I roll a die and it's a absolute, a one, if it's a natural fail, it fails. And that's how it goes. That's how I play in face-to-face games. It's how I play online. And um, so, because of that, it's entirely possible. I mean, there's a relatively high percentage possibility chance that something will happen that I'm not prepared for at any given session. So I guess the ultimate answer is, what do I do? Well, I just roll with the punches and
Yeah.
go with it and not worry too much about it. So,
Which that's a skill set into itself that, it's not across the board. Some people may have difficulty with that. And that's probably why there's individuals that aren't comfortable with just completely relying on the randomness of the dice, because in doing so, you're going to face more of those situations where
mhm,
dynamically you're going to have to adjust to something you weren't anticipating.
yeah. And
and
I,
that involves essentially, as a DM, being able to potentially let go in that moment and say, okay,
mhm,
well, this isn't what I had planned for, but okay,
Mm.
this is where we're going. Let's
right.
roll with it.
Yeah. I mean, the other side of that too is I've been, because I've been DMing for a long time, I feel like the onus is on me when I'm sort of planning an encounter. I should have a good idea of how difficult it's going to be, but I'm not always right. And so sometimes I have to sort of, figure out what to do in the moment without fudging rolls to make it so that I don't accidentally kill everybody, or I at least leave some doors open for people to be able to rescue that particular situation, and I don't end up with a TPK. Or conversely, sometimes a combat ends up being a lot weaker than you thought, or that I thought it was going to be, And then you just, you just have to say, okay, well, you guys really stomped that one. That's just how it goes. Um, you know, so that's that. Uh, Nina,
Yes.
you haven't said anything. Talk to us. You're a new DM. Tell us what you're thinking.
I know. I've actually been laughing because this is a lot of what I've been learning. As I keep going and misstepping, I cannot get a read on my players and they just kind of wander off somewhere. So I've stopped. I really like broadened what I'm doing, just like making lists like NPC names and shop names. And at one point, I entirely created like a mini temple just like off of
Nice.
traps that I had. And I was just like, okay, you guys can go, because it was like right after we had a game and they were like, we want another game. And I was like, I don't have anything for the next game. And they said it was one of the funnest things they did.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
it just, yeah, you just kind of have to roll with the punches. And
Yeah.
that's something that's hard for me because I like having like, I'm very much like Emran in that way. I like having a plan. I like having this road set out and this is what we're going to do and this is where we're going to go. And they're like, no, we're going to go over here. And
Yeah.
but they're all great players and they all, they love the game and we just have fun with it.
Good.
And like the monster creation is something I've struggled with. The combat has been the hardest part of the entire thing. I can do like the creation and I can do like the storytelling and the exploration and all that, but the combat has been hard. And I think it's just finding that balance between something that's too difficult and something that's not difficult enough. So moving stats around and just kind of tailoring things specific to the party, like knowing what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are and kind of playing to that a little bit has helped. I haven't run a game in a while. We've all been pretty busy, but
Yeah.
that's kind of what I've been thinking about.
There's a tool I use, there's a slide I use to when I'm setting up encounters just to try to see from a baseline perspective how balanced they're going to be. It's called Cobalt Fight Club.
Yep.
Huh.
Very popular.
Never
Yep.
heard of that.
And I'll post the link in our Discord. But
that
then
would be great.
if you go to that, it'll basically you can just say, okay, here's the party makeup. Like here's how many players are in the party. Here's what level they are. And then okay, here's what they're going to be fighting. So you've got four players of level 6, and let's say they're going to be fighting. Let's say they're going to be fighting a beholder for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it will tell you flat off the bat, is this encounter too easy or too hard? Or in this case, it's a deadly encounter.
Yeah.
And then you can and then you can say, okay, well, maybe I need to scale this back. And there are lesser versions of beholders you could use if you want to really have a beholder fight, but still want your party to survive more than 2 rounds. Or say, okay, well, maybe I need to find something else. Or okay, well, what else could I add on to this that will make it easier or make it maybe a little harder if it's too easy of a fight. So it's a very fun kind of tool to play around with.
That's really useful actually. And the other thing is kind of
Sorry,
what'd you say?
Just make it an undead beholder.
Still scary.
Yeah.
The other thing that's made it a little bit more tricky is that I have one new player that joined a little later and I'm still kind of getting a beat on him. So that's kind of changed the dynamics a little bit and it's kind of changed where things are headed a little bit. So, but yeah, that'll be an interesting thing to play around with.
Yeah. So it's, oh, go ahead.
My players were, speaking of undead beholders, my players were so frightened because they had heard about this undead beholder they were going to come up against, that when they finally got to meet their undead beholder, their first encounter with an undead beholder, well, 2 things happened. One, I rolled a -1 on its initiative. So it went dead last. And because everyone was so frightened of it, they discharged every single highest level spell damaging thing they could
Fire
on
everything.
It did not get a turn.
Yeah.
So that can happen too.
Yeah. It's funny because I also played a lot of. I mean, I played a lot of every edition, but I ran a lot of D&D 4th edition, and that system is so balanced that you could easily switch one creature out for another because the stats are they're so similar based on level and based on the role of the creature. But I mean, whatever, that has pros and cons. But the thing that taught me is I can easily make a creature. All I have to do is go to the book and find qualities or characteristics that I want this creature to particularly have. I just have to find a different creature that has that. And when I put all those together, then I sort of do creature creation backwards. I sort of think about what I want it to do, and then I go find if there are any other creatures in published works that have that, and then I pull those out, and then I go back and figure out, okay, how hard would that actually make it based on their character creation rules in the monster manual? And if it's too hard, now I start fiddling in the more granular pieces, right? But
Mhm.
usually it's just a matter of kind of, reskinning what's there. If I need a creature that has, the ability to regenerate, and like a troll, okay, a troll can regenerate. If I need a creature that has that, okay, now I know if I know a troll can regenerate, but maybe I don't want fire to be the thing that stops them from regenerating. I'll pick something different, right? Maybe
Mhm.
um it's radiant damage that stops them from regenerating or something, and then now you suddenly have a creature that's not at all what they expect, and yet it's got you could make it the same level and the same power level and all that stuff as something that's already published. So I rarely ever make a creature from scratch. The idea might be from scratch, like, oh, I think this might be cool, but then I just go look at what's already there. I do make occasionally something that's brand new, but that's probably maybe 5% of what I do. 95% of what I do when I'm planning my games is based on what's already been play tested and published and everything. So that's how it goes. I wish oh man, I probably shouldn't say this, knock on wood. I wish if I was in a position where I could spend more time, then I probably would design more rather than just pull things in and add different things together to make something pseudo new. I would actually create newer things altogether, but I just don't have time for that. I would never run games if I did that. I would have to spend all my time designing, and I would never get a chance to test or use any of it because it would take me too much time. Okay, so if there's nothing else that anybody wants to say about that, we'll probably revisit those topics again, I think. But that's a good 45 minutes in. So now let's go back to the actual game. So David, when you lost your internet, I put up the map so that the audience could see it. I put up the map of the area. I'll do it again real quick, just for those who might be new to the stream. There's a map um, of the temple complex that you are in, and I sort of described the pieces of it again. The entry hall, the coral altar, the curtains behind it, the two rooms off to the sides, the wings of the temple, and then the what do you call them? The sort of hatches that lead down, that you crawled down, and then you went down the stairs to get to that sort of odd shaped room, almost pyramid shaped room, with the blue sigil on the ground. And so that's where we are. So
Okay.
let me go back to the main screen here for the audience. Let me remind you of exactly what our information is about this room. The room is roughly rectangular, but the southern wall sort of steps out. You can see in the image that I posted on Discord in 10-foot increments. So every square on that image is 10 feet, not 5 feet. So there's a stair-step pattern stepping back to the southern wall of the room. The ceiling, remember the ceiling in the stairway and in the hallway leading down to this area was very, very low. And so some of you had to sort of bend over as you moved through there. But in this room, the ceilings go back up to a height of 12 to 14 feet. and the room is dimly lit with a sickly blue hue. And the blue hue is coming from, or I should say, the source of light is partly a large circle inscribed on the floor. There is a six-pointed star and several sigils etched into the ground there. And within the etchings, it's glowing blue, and that's very dim. But there's a lens hovering about, almost 4 feet in the air in the center of that circle, and it's spinning around slowly, just like the lens, the large lens that was in the room in the Crab Island that you were at. So the lens is the same size as the other one. It's about a foot in diameter. The middle of the lens is also glowing with a sort of blue energy, and as it turns, as it spins, of course, it's projecting the blue only in the direction coming out of the concave side of the lens, just like in that crab room.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is also an altar there that's made of coral, similar to the altar in the main worship hall. It's a few feet in front of the southern wall. Next to it, on either side, are two unlit braziers. And along the northern wall is a set of 3 large bookcases that are stuffed full of books, scrolls, and little rolls of parchment. And basically everything on the shelves there is in very bad shape. They're brittle. There are pieces flaking off. In fact, you can see on the floor in front of the bookcases, there are little bits and scraps of paper and lots of little piles of dust where the paperwork that is on those shelves that has been disturbed, a lot of it just basically has disintegrated as it's being touched. However, there were 9 things that you found on the shelves that are preserved enough to be usable or at least partially readable. And so, just for the audience's sake, because I know that I think Imran probably wrote these down, or Nina wrote these down, right?
Yeah.
Let me give you the name of the items. The first one is a rather large book that is named the Atlas of the Kingdom of Dupern. The next is called Pactus Hydronicus. Pactus Hydronicus. The third book was named Amethyst Wards. Wards, W-A-R-D-S. Next was something called Fluid Factotum. Fluid Factotum. Next was a scroll, and at the top it said Scroll of Vile Undoing, but the words of the scroll are written in primordial. Next was a scroll with a flesh to mud spell on it. After that was another scroll with a mud shape spell on it. And then there is a book called The History of the Green Bloods. And then the last but not least, there was a book called Herbs and Tonics of Calrot. And you know that Calrot is the region that Calrot is the lake that used to be the main largest lake in the continent where Calport is. And so Calport was in the Calrot region. That's why Calport is Calport, because it's the port in Calrot.
Okay.
So what would you like to do?
How fast does the lens spin?
It's slow, but not. Let's see. Probably about every 45 seconds, it has done a full revolution.
Okay, so I want to wait for it to go by before I go into the room, and then I want to, remaining invisible, I want to like follow it around, but staying kind of out of its light gaze.
Okay.
Whichever way it rotates, I'm going to follow those behind it because I want to like circle around to get close to the altar.
Okay. All right. You have no problem doing that. Are you going to step on the blue? Because
No.
it's basically in the middle. It's hovering in the air about 4 feet above the ground, in the middle of that blue circular arcane circle.
No, I'm going to stay out of the circle.
Okay. Okay. You don't have any problem doing that. You have no problem going around it. There's nothing blocking you. There's enough room around the edge of the uh, the circle that you can actually get around just fine if you want to make
Okay.
it over to that the altar.
Okay. And I guess as I pass by a bookcase, I'll grab one of the items as I pass by.
Okay.
Uh,
Have you told
or
everyone
by-
else? Have you told everyone else? I can't remember what we did at the very end. Did everyone else come into the room or?
No, I don't think we got that far. I think you
Okay.
ended as soon as I poked my
Okay.
head in or went inside. Yeah.
All right.
We're still waiting at the end of
Yeah.
by the staircase.
Okay. Okay. Um, so you make it down to the altar. What would you like to know?
Okay. I'll take a look at it and see what is on it or what it looks like.
It looks very similar to the altar in the main room of the temple. It's made of this weird coral. It's mostly white, but there's some blue and a couple of streaks of purple. It has on top of it a bowl, which you assume is some sort of offering bowl, and that's pretty much it. There's really nothing
That's
else
it.
on it.
Okay. I'll swipe the offering bowl and I'll continue around the side and then I'll go
Okay.
back out the way I came.
Okay.
I'll go back up to wherever it is. So we have another crystal room like the one on Crab Island with one of those blue discs rotating around, casting its blue glow. There's a bookshelf with a bunch of items here. Here's a book I grabbed off of it. It's called Cactus Hydronicus, and this was the bowl that was on a coral altar in that same room. There's no one else in there that I can tell, but there's a pentagram-like blue shape etched into the ground underneath the spinning disc.
Well, I'm not burning another hand to get rid of the disc.
I think that's fair.
But I think we can assume like we activated mistakenly in the last room that there's some kind of possible alert or communication method that if we don't know what we're doing, we might open up again.
Well, if we absolutely need to shut it down, I think I may have a way to do that now.
Oh,
Yep. If there is any kind of magic effect on it, I might be able to turn that off.
Well, there are numerous interesting scrolls, a couple that look like spell scrolls, and ones that are books that have lore and information in them. I think would be valuable. I mean, I could just go pilfer everything, just like I got these things staying out of the gaze of the crystal, and we could leave. Or if we want to step into that room, we risk the chance of activating that disc.
Do we want to activate the disc?
Part of me says maybe.
Because I'm wondering if we, Konos, if what you said is true and we can kind of get rid of the magic, I wonder if you can get rid of the magic on the teleportation circle? And then see if we can activate the disc so that we can talk to whoever's on the other side.
Okay. Now I can basically do this once at this point. I'll need a bit of a either. So it's a matter of kind of picking and choosing what's going to be what we think is the best thing to turn off.
okay, but magic circles tend to be really picky about how they're written, right? So if we were to break the circle on the ground, that would probably disable the circle from working.
Assuming that's what's making it work in the first place. It's probably best.
Well,
to
I'm not thinking of the lens itself, but I'm thinking of disrupting their ability to teleport here.
Right.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Mm-hmm.
It might require actually like either destroying the ground enough. I don't really do that kind of thing.
I can do that.
But yeah, if we can destroy the ground enough so that the teleport circle is no longer complete, if they try to open a portal, it'll likely fail. And that'll give us an edge if we want to actually activate the lens and see what we can see on the other side if it's the same thing we saw last time. And they won't be able to teleport to us.
Well, either way, I can't really do much from all the way back here, so I have to get closer anyway.
Well, let me go grab all those things first, since I was successful doing that the first time. Because if we have to beat a hasty retreat, those are really valuable. I think it'll help us in our quest with the knowledge that may be contained in those tomes. So let me go at least get those, and then come back, and then we can.
My big thing is, I don't think this is a case where we can just leave. We want to regain the use of this place for the
Right.
Haka.
Yeah, and so far we haven't found anything that looks like an actual incubation grounds either.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is it does not in any way resemble a simple solution, so much as just getting rid of a force that's taking over their breeding grounds. This does not look like what they were expecting it to look like either. So how are we going to transmute it back to its former state?
That may be up to them, honestly.
Yeah.
If these people destroyed their incubation grounds and installed a freaking library in the same spot, not much we can do about that. But besides making sure that they can't come back.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me go get those things, and then we can figure out what we want to do with the circle.
Actually, before you go, check and see if the books look dusty, if they've been used recently, or if they're a little bit unused and dusty.
Okay. Most of the shelves is actually rotten away, so these are preserved in good condition. So presumably these have not been here as long as all those other books that were rotten. It's someone's active library is what it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, my whole sense is between the barrels of water and wine that were upstairs on top of the trapdoor, and now there's somebody else here.
And that's why we should probably be fairly quick, because we could get surprised if we just happen to be here. Someone stepped away. So
all right, go for it.
I'll be right back.
Did you mention the curtain being there?
Which curtain?
There's one on the other side of the room.
There's a curtain on each side of the room, right, that blocks line of sight. So
Right.
maybe the rest of the party should wait behind the curtain so we're closer.
Oh.
In case something happens.
I agree.
And before you go, actually, can I just thumb through that book really quick that you have?
I have it too.
The pact. I'll just like skim the first page or two and just see if there's anything interesting in it.
The Pactus Hydronicus so there's a couple of blank pages, and on the first page after the flyleaves it says Pactus Hydronicus, and it's stamped in silver foil, and then under it says the history of the Blue Gate and its influence.
Oh, this seems relevant. Okay. Is it a small book or a big book?
It's probably looks like this.
Nice.
So it's
okay,
about an inch thick, solid, with thick paper, and it's been hand bound, and it has silver foil stamping on it. The cover is blue.
All right, so this would take some time to go through.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna have some reading to do when we get back on that ship.
Yeah, can save that for another day. Okay, so I mean, the other thing that we were kind of figuring out was that this was, there was the talk of the Palace of Mud and the Howling Gate, and this could potentially be what this is talking about. Do we want to try to maybe open this up, or do we think it's better to leave this alone?
I feel like if we open it up, we're not going to be able to put it back together. And I guess our current goal is to get it reverted back to its original state. Okay. So it depends on which goal you're looking at. You want to get more information? Maybe. But if we want to do this and get out of here, kind of just got to get rid of everything and put it back the way it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably what I'm leaning to. I mean, I have no idea what. I mean, I have a couple ideas about this Howling Gate, but I don't really know, and I'm not sure I want to be proven wrong or right at this point.
I don't think we have all the elements to be able to open anything. Because if we're looking at all of the writing, there's a lot to it. And then if we're talking about just the Howling Gate, this was such a long time ago.
Mhm.
My handwriting is terrible. What's the first word? Is it scale the Howling Gate in the Palace of Mud or seal?
Seek.
Seek.
Seek. My handwriting got really bad there. I was scribbling at this point.
Yeah.
Seek. Okay. So, what? I still have that stupid
Crab fork.
crab fork. I don't know what to do with. I can try something with that, but I don't know. I feel like, okay, let's take it one step at a time. Let's get in there, get these books, maybe skim through them. Maybe 2 people keep watch on each side of the room. 2 people start scanning the books and pocketing them, and then we'll go from there, depending on what we find.
Okay.
And I guess if Axley has told us this, there's that coral altar in the room too, if you want to check that out, Kronos.
Sure.
One step at a time. All right.
So I thought I already went back to start getting.
Okay.
Yeah, this was the rest of us
Yeah,
talking while
yeah.
Axley's already
He's
filled
already
in
filled his
shit.
pocket at this point. There's
Okay.
this pile stack of books and scrolls floating back
Yeah.
Perfect.
towards us because you're still invisible.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're still invisible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, this big pile of 8 other scrolls and books appears and falls to the ground.
All right.
He's still
my foot.
invisible. For you to
This
see
would've been a
anything he's
pass.
carrying, he has to drop it. So
That's hilarious. I'm snagging the amethyst wards.
okay.
And then I think I'm gonna head to the other side of the room and check what's on the other side of those curtains and keep watch over there, and I'll just holler if there's any trouble.
Okay.
I'll
You
fall
wanna-
behind. Go ahead.
Roll me a perception check, Imran.
Sure. I think that's a 13.
The passageway behind that curtain looks and feels very much like the passageway you came from on your side.
Okay.
It goes in the opposite direction of where you came, but it's at the same basic angle. And the ceiling gets very low again, and it's very wet and muddy and dark.
Okay.
I'll follow in behind Emran and carefully approach the altar.
Okay.
I'll say I never stepped inside the circle, so
Yeah,
that-
I'm avoiding the circle as like perimeter walk all the way around.
Okay.
I also
Um,
didn't let the glow cast its gaze on me. So I guess we'll find out what happens when it makes its revolution.
I don't know. I don't think it did anything before, did it? It wasn't until we touched it that it activated.
Right.
It wasn't
Right.
until we spoke the
You
phrase
spoke.
that it
You
activated.
spoke
Oh, we
the
spoke the
activation
phrase. That's
yeah.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we're okay as long as we don't wake it up.
So Imran and Konos, you're not taking any care to not be in the passageway of the light.
I mean,
in the...
I'll avoid it because I'm just going in and out, but I don't know if Konos can avoid it if he's going to be examining the altar.
I'll try to avoid. So I guess I'll maybe like wait till it's kind of pointed as far away from me as it could be, and then move in, get within maybe about 10 feet of the altar. And I guess I'm just kind of be like, sort of pacing in a circle around
Okay.
it, and just slowly going around and just kind of examining with my eyes at this point.
Okay. I mean, it's not hard to avoid getting the beam from the lens on you. I just need to know if that's what you're doing. So, okay. And Marcel, what's Marcel doing?
I'm gonna stay on the one on the side we came from.
Okay.
Just keeping a ear out to if anything happens from where we came.
Okay.
And I guess I'm gonna thumb through the. I want to thumb through the history of the Greenbloods, see what I can figure out about that one.
Okay. So the history of the Green Bloods, you start thumbing through it and you see that it is filled with hand-drawn pictures of mostly reptilian creatures, but all water-based creatures. So, like, if there's a snake in there, it's a sea snake. And there are several sort of lizards that are more on the amphibian lifestyle side of things. And there are also some items in there that you wouldn't necessarily think of as green bloods, like a squid and an octopus. And there's a couple of pictures of like seals and whales. And for each of these images, there's an entry with a count and like a not no date, but a count and a like a location, like a description of, um, you know, uh, water was 300 meters deep, and you know 2 pods of whales went by with 6 whales each, and it's sort of like an observational guide with locations but no dates. But it talks about the weather and how good or bad the weather was, and how windy it was, how deep the water was, and what the behavior of the creatures were in each entry. The way I'm talking about it makes it seem very long, but it's actually very short. There's about a page and a half for each creature entry. And some of the creature entries have more than one entry because they saw them in more than one place. But
Does it read more like an expedition journal?
it reads like a bestiary of observed behavior in certain locations. So, for example, the whale entry has 5 different locations, and in each location they noted how many were there, the relative depth of the water, how healthy the whales seemed, which is kind of odd, but then also whether the whales were feeding or just traveling through. So if it was an expeditionary journal, in your mind, you're thinking uh, they must have had books that listed the other items, because this is only showing the water-based creatures that they came across, and
Okay.
it's not dated, so it's not in a diary style.
Right. Is there any like introduction or outro to the book?
No, but on the front page, where it says, it has written in very nice, it's in common, but it's very nice writing. It says, the history of the Green Bloods. And then under that, in a sort of handwritten scrawl, obviously written by someone else, it says, Leralak awaits. Leralak awaits.
How do you spell that?
Leralak, excuse me, Leralak. Leralak.
Okay. Curious. I'm wondering, is there any like entry in that book that would be like that looks like or are the Haka?
There is a Haka entry in it, actually.
What does the Haka entry say?
It lists 5 different populations of Haka, and it talks about the size of the island that they're on, and whether or not they are actively breeding.
Does it say that they're actively breeding in the book?
It does. All five of the groups, it says they're actively breeding. Mud Swimmer Clan is not one of them.
Oh, interesting. But does it describe the island it describes in the book? Is it the one we're on?
Nope.
Huh. Curious. Okay.
I'm going to ask, does anyone speak primordial?
Yes.
A little bit.
Thanks.
Here, check out this scroll. It's labeled Scroll of Vile Undoing, but it's in primordial. I can't read it.
I'll go over to Axley and take a look.
Okay. From what you gather, this scroll without reading the entire thing because you don't want to accidentally activate it, the idea that you get is that this scroll turns an individual's reliable defense into a great weakness. In mechanical terms, that would mean, say, if something has a resistance to a particular type of damage, this turns it into a weakness.
Interesting. Okay, thanks. I was wrestling with the substantive text. I wasn't sure if it meant that you would face an undoing of a vile nature, or this was to undo something vile.
Those are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. I just thought it might point to it might be a way to undo what had been done here, which is pretty vile. So that's why I was curious.
Right. So Konos, do you want to give me an investigation check for your coral altar investigation?
11.
Okay. You don't find anything, excuse me, you don't find anything particularly odd or different or new about the altar. It's made of a sort of generic coral. It's not actually made of the same very blue and purple coral as the initial one, but it is coral, and it's relatively fresh, you can tell. But other than that, you don't really notice anything all that special about it.
Well, since Konos is checking out the altar, I'll go over to him because I want to show him. Here's the bowl that was on top of it. It was right here at this location.
Okay.
The bowl is actually just a little brass bowl, which strikes you as odd, right? Everything else in this place is mud or clay or coral.
Is there an underside to the altar, or is it just a solid stone?
It's a solid piece stuck in the mud.
I want to check behind it, see if there's anything hidden back there, any secret compartments.
You want to roll me an investigation check?
What do I add to that for investigation? It's not passive, right?
Correct, not passive. It's intelligence investigation.
Intelligence investigation. Okay. So that would be 12.
You don't really notice anything about the coral, but you notice that the braziers that are sort of, as you're moving around the coral altar, you notice that the braziers look like they've been moved. Like they used to be behind the coral altar. You see two little circles where there was something, the imprint in the muddy ground.
Hey, look at this. It looks like those braziers actually were at one point behind the altar.
Okay. Can I just go and check around the area where he's indicating they had previously been and see if there's anything interesting there?
Sure. Either perception or investigation check.
There's a 13 investigation.
It's pretty obvious that that the braziers were there, and it's relatively recent. And you see a seam in the wall, the southern wall.
Okay. I'll point that out to everyone. Say, maybe moving these, but maybe there's a door behind there, and maybe moving these back to where they were would open it.
Well, if we move it back to where they were, then there wouldn't be room for the door to open, right? Is there that much room behind the altar?
There's about 5 feet behind the altar.
So with those braziers in place behind it, would there be room for a door to open?
I mean, possibly if the doors open the other direction.
Also, while this is happening, I've been thumbing through my book, the Amethyst Wards.
Okay.
Sorry, I was going through my notes because, Marcel, I have things to talk to you about.
You mean when Marcel tells you about what they found?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, do you want to try to move these back and see what happens? Let's do it.
Well,
Yeah.
hold on. So which one you have the Amethyst Words book?
Yes.
Okay. That is inscribed with the subheading A History of the Use of Amethyst in Binding and Summoning. A History of the Use of Amethyst in Binding and Summoning. And do you want to roll me a history check?
Sure. Ooh, that's not good. History is a 4.
Okay.
I've heard of it.
Okay. So as you're thumbing through, you see that there are lots of different images drawn on several different pages that show different circles and the types of sigils that get inscribed inside them. And almost every single one of them has a piece of has a place for a piece of amethyst to be placed. And on the last page, there is a drawing of, and all the other drawings and all the other entries are, they have an extensive description and list of different activities and how this is used. And on the last page, there is a drawing of a very odd contraption. You're not even really quite sure what it is. It looks like it has mud in it, and it has some tubular things, and it has some glass in it, and it has different parts where pieces of crystal can be stuck in it. And at one spot, it has a big arrow, and it says master, and the arrow points to a spot on the piece of equipment. You're not even really sure what you're even looking at. So it looks like a 5-year-old scribble.
Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, so you guys want to move the brazier?
Yeah.
This entire time you've been avoiding the light,
Yeah.
but it's going to take 2 of you to move each brazier,
Okay.
and it's going to be impossible to avoid the light while you're doing it.
Okay.
I mean, Axley is invisible still, so.
I think at some point it's inevitable that.
Yeah, we'll cross the streams at some point.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Might as well do it now.
so then that's going to happen. So everybody in the room, give me a perception check. So I guess everyone except Marcel.
19.
A natural 1.
I got a natural 2.
Okay.
That dice is leaving.
Konos, you and Axley go over, and you're working hard to pick up this brazier, and it's a lot heavier than you thought it was going to be. It's empty, but the metal is just, which also again strikes you as weird that it's metal. That's odd, but it's really, really heavy. The thing is really dense, and as you pick it up and you start to move, the light from the lens sweeps by you as it's moving on its rotation, and you notice that where it strikes you, right, your shadow is now transferred to the wall, right? Your shadow is projected onto the wall next to you. But in your shadow, there's the shadow of your body, and inside of it are the words Leralak awaits.
Ooh, that's.
And then as it sweeps by, in common, as it sweeps by, it moves, and your shadow is no longer there, and there's nothing on the wall.
I don't see this, do I?
Nope. Only Konos saw it at first.
It wouldn't have affected me anyway because I won't have a shadow.
Yeah, you're invisible, so you didn't.
Yeah.
But you also didn't see it.
Yeah.
Only Konos saw it.
Yeah, there's some weird like black light stuff going on here. Anybody know the name or place called Leralak.
As
Yeah,
a matter of fact,
where'd you hear
Marcel,
that?
Marcel, you have probably no problem hearing that. You're not that far away.
Yeah, no, I was muted.
Oh,
Yeah, I pipe up going like, yeah, it says Leralak awakes on the book I was reading.
we
Huh.
also found Hail Leralak on our ship.
so all of
Um,
you're all saying this, you're yelling this at each other out loud?
no,
Yes,
We
you
did.
are.
yes,
Yeah.
So,
I am.
as Marcel
God damn it.
said, yes, it says Leralak awaits, and as Kono said, oh, does anybody know anything about So the lens,
Oh no.
Oh boy.
We spoke the words, we
the,
did it.
the lens stops and it projects onto the south wall. I was going to say the back wall, but the south wall. So y'all might want to call Marcel in to see this.
Call her in.
Yeah.
I run behind and I grab Marcel and pull, but I'm trying to be as quiet as I can.
So the lens stops
I'm
and
just
it's projecting something onto the back wall. And what you see is you see oh, I have to look something up real quick. Sorry. I want to be able to describe this person to you. Come on. Now my computer's going to take forever. Watch.
this was the very first page of notes I ever took for this game.
The what now?
Let's go way back.
The Leralak. First page of notes. Why it took so
Yeah.
long for me to find.
Yes.
I was wondering why I didn't have that name in my notes.
Yep, first game.
Yeah, you want to tell them where it came from while I'm looking this up?
Yeah,
Oh, do you have time to have the exposition?
all of the so we found all that scribbling on the walls in the master's cabins in the boat, and we found like the symbol of Adrum, the House of Adrum, and we found Hail Leralak. And when we made history checks, we found out that that was the name of a powerful magic user of old who was notorious for something, but we didn't know what he was notorious for.
And his symbol is an eye symbol.
Okay, so that's how that
Eye
all
of the
ties in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have a feeling we're about to find out what he's notorious for.
So what you see a man. He looks human, and if my computer would go. He has a scar on his left cheek. He's wearing a helmet that has a big amethyst stone in the front of it and two horns coming out on each side, and they sort of curl around. And he's wearing blue and purple robes. And he is sitting on the back of an enormous manta ray. And he's holding a scepter, and he pushes the scepter forward and he yells, "Onward!" And the ray begins to swim through the ocean. And you see that he is being followed by an enormous school of fish. And these are very thin fish with very sharp teeth protruding from their mouths. And following that is a group of crabs and lobsters and turtles and eels, all following. Behind that is a group of rays and squids and octopi and sharks. And following that is a group of these very strange humanoid shaped creatures that have these sort of flaps on their mouths and a few tentacles on their heads. They are riding sea lions. Next to them is an enormous group of sea elves riding ocean horses. Behind that is a group of sea gnomes riding jellyfish. And these groups are all followed by several pods of whales and squads of kraken. And there are so many creatures moving en masse through the ocean that it takes several minutes for it to pan and show you all of the entirety of the group. And you see behind them coming another platoon of creatures. You see what you might recognize as Sahagwin and merfolk and tritons and sharks and more and more and more. And it looks like it goes on for miles. And there are so many creatures moving that the sea itself is being pushed before them and around them, that it's causing massive tidal waves on the land. And as it sweeps by one final time, it sort of sweeps and it goes and it lets you see the same sort of image twice. And as you look the second time, you notice that there's something odd about all of these creatures. They look not alive.
Okay.
When I see like my own kind among this person, I can't help but just inadvertently drop the brazier and like, what the hell is going on? What am I even seeing here?
Yeah.
This
Actually,
happened when we spoke the name Leralak. Are we seeing Leralak? Is this Leralak?
Could be. But he was
wearing robes and has a scepter.
supposed to be Mage of Old. He should be dead at this point.
You said like everywhere this procession went, there were like big waves that were following behind it or going and coming in front of it.
yeah, it shows you a very brief scene. It pans through the majority of the first two groups of creatures in this entire, I guess you might call it a parade of an army parade, I guess. I don't know what
Does
you
it
would call
seem
that.
like it's like going through the same scene again? Like, do we see the guy again calling onwards?
It shows you the same scene twice. It shows you the onward and it pans and it lets you see all of the different groups of creatures. I mean, there's some there that I didn't name, right? It seems like it goes on for miles and miles, and they're all in these sort of little platoon groups. And then it pans out and it sort of goes above the ocean and it shows these enormous tidal waves battering the coasts of several different islands.
Did we?
And then when it pans in the second time, it shows him saying onward again, but then you notice all of the creatures are dead or undead, as you might call it.
So wait, the first time it pans, it doesn't look like they're dead?
It doesn't seem
Or
like
is it
they
just
are. It's faster.
Hmm.
I just look at Emran and Marcel and say, did we just see the sinking? Did we just see what caused the sinking?
You think that's what it's showing?
I'm gonna
Does
try something.
the-
I'm gonna yell out to the crystal, Algrath, the name of the Harbor Watch guy. I want to see if it changes its view, if it shows something different.
Nope, nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
Does it seem that the creatures that are being shown following this guy are like basically the ones that I just saw in the book?
A lot of them are, yeah. There are some there
Hmm.
that are not in the book.
Okay.
His
And
place,
some that are
his library.
not in. Yeah, I was gonna say there's some that are in the book that are not there. Like, do we see any Haka in the scene?
Yeah, there's Haka, there's Lutrinians, there's pretty much any kind of seafaring race, they're there.
Seems to be leading an army of the undead of various everything it's come across, all the various creatures it has joined an his undead army. I wonder, is it showing us? The question is it showing us a current vision, or is this the past?
I was gonna say, if it's not the past, we're in trouble. If it is the past, it could. I don't think it's specifically the sinking, but it could be pertaining to that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't
Also,
even
we
know
just
if this
activated this thing. Maybe we should get around, breaking the teleport. What we're
Sure.
assuming is a teleportation circle.
Okay.
Well, let's finish the moving the brazier. Let's get it in the
So
position.
after the lens shows you that view twice, it shuts off. And then after 20 seconds, it starts rotating again.
That was different.
It was, yeah. And the person we saw in there, that didn't resemble either of the people we saw in the projection on Crab Island, did it?
Yes.
Oh, it did.
Yes.
Oh, great.
Oh, good.
Well.
Cool.
Yeah, let's get these braziers moved. Come on. Pick it up.
So you can move the braziers with no problem now, except that every time it sweeps by you, it puts your shadow on the wall, and inside your shadow it says Leralak awaits.
Is it always in the same place in the room, or is it just everywhere?
Wherever your shadow, wherever it hit, because you're moving, so wherever it hits and it projects your shadow, in the middle of your shadow it says Leralak awaits.
Somebody else want to come stand in this light and just make sure this isn't about me, please?
Sure. Stand in the light.
Same thing happens. It projects
Okay.
Imran's shadow on the wall, and it says Leralak awaits.
Okay. All right. Well, once we get out of here, I think I may have a way to answer some of these questions, but I don't want to do it now.
Can I examine the circle on the ground? Does it look like the same one that was on Crab Island?
No.
Okay.
You can roll me a Arcana check.
Sure. I'm not rolling well. That's a 6.
To you it just kind of looks like a standard teleportation symbol.
Sure.
And like you've seen them before, because you know that at the Temple of Goros in Trastenfin, they actually had the remnants of some older teleportation circles where the different temples had instant teleportation services from one temple to another from before the sinking.
Cool.
But you never saw them working. But that's kind of what it looks like. The symbology is a little bit different, of course, but that's basically what it looks like to you, that it's a teleportation circle. It's obviously not active right now, even though it's glowing.
So it can be used, but no one's trying to activate it at the moment to get through.
That's what it seems like, yeah.
At the current moment.
Let's make sure that's permanent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the floor of this area is that weird clay stone that the Haka use to build things. And so it would take you probably only about, if all of you worked together, you estimate probably 10 minutes to destroy the circle enough to scrape up the ground and scratch enough of the circle away that you're absolutely positive that it's not going to work.
Oh, so we're physically going to destroy it.
Yeah, you could physically destroy it. You don't need to use arc, just because of the
surface is carved
type of
The
surface
weight.
that it's in is porous and fragile.
Okay.
So
Do we want to... Okay, there's pros and cons to doing this now and later. Because if we do it now and there's a glowing portal on another side that we don't know about and it stops glowing, then it alerts people that we're here. And they could
I don't think that's how portals work.
Do they? I don't really know how portals work in general.
I, as a player, know, but I don't know if I should.
you can roll an Arcana check.
Okay.
I
It's
roll
like,
as
how
well.
much does Moselle know
Sure.
about portals?
Yeah, Konos can roll as well.
23.
Yeah, that was a 5.
Okay.
Marcel has no idea.
But even if a portal on the other side stops glowing, then what does it matter? They can't come through.
They could communicate with someone on this side to tell us that there's an intruder, and then we're back with the crab situation behind us.
Konos, you know how the standard teleportation circle works, and that is It can be active. In other words, it's usable, but it's not necessarily being activated at that moment. It's basically like saying you have a door from one room to another. Because there's a door there, it's a passageway, and if you choose to go through it, you can go to that other location. If the teleportation circle is destroyed, it basically makes it so that there's no longer a door to that location. As far
Yeah.
as you know, most of the time teleportation circles are not used as indicators of whether there's an activity or something. On the other hand, if someone tries to use it to come to this location and it doesn't work, they will know that something has happened to it. But it's not doesn't work like a signal alarm or something like that.
Right. So yeah, so he'll just tell the group, actually he's right. If we scratch this out, if we destroy it, that would stop wherever this leads to. Anyone on the other side couldn't get through to here unless they have another means of teleporting. But if they did, they wouldn't need this. So I think we're probably, if we want to rub it out, I think we're safe to do so.
It also, Imran is making another point also about the connectedness of the portals. If you destroy this one, you can never use it.
Ooh, that's a good point.
But we don't know how to use it.
Correct.
At
I
this point in
can't
time.
use it, so
I don't. At this point, I think I would rather have something on this island chasing us rather than a powerful spellcaster that knows how to use a transportation circle. So
Yeah.
I say scratch it out.
So I'm busy heaving against the brazier, going, "Come on, Konos,
Yep,
put your back into it."
Yep. Yep.
yeah, no, I'll help
yeah.
destroy the circle.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. If you two want to do that, we'll move the braziers.
Okay.
Sure.
So if the two of you, are you going to be precise about your destruction of it and try to make sure that you're 100% sure, or are you just going to kind of scrape?
It's glowing, right?
It
all we
does
have
have
to
a
do-
hue, yeah.
All we have to do is destroy it enough so that the glow disappears.
Sure. We'll go with that.
You mentioned that the floor was like muddy.
Yes, it's muddy.
So there's like a bit of there's some component of water on this ground.
Yes.
'Cause-
Remember the hallway that you came down was also, the steps were very muddy and the walls were
Mhm.
very muddy. It's kind of dug out of the ground.
I'm wondering if I can use shape water to freeze the water in it and use that to like break the ground by like freezing and unfreezing it because of the expanding properties of ice.
Yeah, you can do that.
Sure. And then I can use a very basic thaumaturgy and kind of create a little rumble under the ground to shake it loose a little. I don't know if that helps.
So
but
I can freeze it and then you can make it shake.
yeah.
Okay. If that's what you want to do, that will definitely destroy it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So then that doesn't take very long at all. I was gonna figure out how long it was gonna take you to destroy it, but since you're using magic, that's like nothing. Okay, yeah, it easily is disrupted by freezing the water, and then causing a little tiny bit of earth shaking.
Yeah, I can freeze up to 5 feet, a
Yeah.
5-foot cube in 6 seconds. So yeah,
Yeah.
pretty quick.
Okay. Yeah. Wow, that's pretty disruptive. Yeah. So that's no problem. By the time you get done with that, right around that same time, you see Konos trying to pick up the second brazier. You would see Axley also doing it, but he's invisible, so you don't see him doing it. But
I'm gonna go over and help. Accidentally run into Axley in the process.
My foot.
Sorry, can't see you.
okay. So you place the second brazier, and as you place it exactly on the spot that the impression was left, you hear a click.
Okay, let's try to open the door.
Yeah.
There's the door.
Push the wall.
Yeah, just push against it and see if it moves back.
Okay. Okay. So you push the door and it opens into a soft claystone stairway. The stairs look like they descend about 60 feet down into the darkness of a cavern passageway. The steps appear to be muddy and soft.
So, do you think this is leading to what was normally their incubation chamber, or is this something new?
That's my guess.
I would imagine.
It's got to be. I mean, we haven't seen any other sign of that around here. So
Okay. Do you want me to go investigate what's at the bottom?
Sure.
if you're still invisible, you might as well just
Yeah.
try to be as quiet as you can.
Okay.
I'll send my dancing lights with you, so you have some light.
All right.
Okay. Okay. So the steps are actually muddy and soft. They feel like they're not really as much stone as they are muddy clay.
Mhm.
The air is moist. It smells of minerals and moldy water. The passageway itself is carved out of mud from the ground. It's not smooth at all. And the walls are, they have seeping water coming out of them. And in a few areas, there are tiny crystalline phosphorescent creatures like little beetles that seem to be crawling very slowly through the mud walls. And as they get closer to the surface of the wall, you can see that their abdomens are glowing a little bit. That's the only light in here other than Marcel's dancing light. The width of the passage is very inconsistent. It goes on for at least 80 feet, and in some places it's 10 feet wide, and in other places it goes down to about 2 feet wide. And in a couple of places, it looks like you're going to have to turn sideways to sort of inch your way down.
Okay.
After you get about 60 feet through this narrow, uncomfortable, dripping passageway, you find yourself face to face with a very thin waterfall. And it appears that there's water from somewhere above pouring down, and it's creating this sort of shimmering archway. Beyond this passageway that you're in, when you look sort of through the water, you can see a sculpted claystone hallway beyond that waterfall area.
Okay. I'll push my face through the waterfall. and
How
look through.
far down is the waterfall? Like how far away from the door?
The waterfall is blocking away from the door where you're at. It's 80 feet, and it's a twisting passageway. So he is gone. You don't see him anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He's gone.
Do I need? Okay, I'm just thinking of the
Dancing light.
lights.
Yeah. If
I
those, what's their
doesn't say anything. It's 120 feet.
Okay.
It doesn't say anything about me having to see it, so I
Mhm.
can't really see actually anyways. So
Right.
I'm just basically moving them slowly down the
Mhm.
corridor as far as I can. I clearly don't see the waterfall, so the lights probably just pass right through the waterfall until it hits 120. I can't move them anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, probably most likely, yes. So, yeah, so none of you can see him, but you do now that he's beyond that area and the light went with him, you all can see, if you're looking down the hallway, you can see the sort of glowing crystalline insect abdomen stuff moving in the walls. It makes the walls look like they're crawling. So Axley, you put your face through the waterfall, and you see a 10-foot wide hallway, and it turns to your left. So you
Okay.
haven't gone through the waterfall, so all you see is that the passageway turns to your left.
Is there still light for me to see beyond the waterfall?
Yeah, it's the dancing light is there next to your
Okay.
head.
then I'll continue to move forward as long as I can use the light to see what's beyond.
Okay. So let's see. It's been 80. So you can go 40 more feet in. So
Okay.
the first for the first 40 feet, it's a 10-foot wide passageway, basically. It sort of narrows down and then it shifts to your left, and there's 20 more feet of 10-foot wide passageway. And then that's basically the extent of where that light will go. And it's shining into an area where the hallway widens out, and you see a set of double doors about 40 feet down the hall. Marcel, those dancing lights, how far do they shed light in? Is it a 20-foot radius?
It's 10-foot radius. Dim light and 10-foot radius.
Dim light and 10-foot. Okay, so I take that back. You can't actually see the doors, but you do see that the hallway widens out.
Okay.
You can make it to the end of the 10-foot part, and you see that it widens out, and that the walls beyond that are even more sort of constructed.
Mhm.
And you see that there's something etched into the walls, but from where you're at, you can't see what it is because the light
Okay.
doesn't shine that far.
Okay, then I'll go back and get the rest of the party and tell them what I saw. It'd be nice if we could do that trick where I could think to you and communicate back and forth.
If you had said so earlier, I could have just been sending you messages.
What's the range on that, though?
120 feet.
Yeah, so
Same as the dancing lights.
yeah, so you would have ended.
We'll have to remember that for next time for sure. But yeah, so there's further to go once we pass that waterfall, but the lights didn't shed enough light to see what was beyond. But it looks like the passage is opening up.
Listening
Shall
back
we-
behind us, do I hear anything?
You
That
can
would be of concern.
roll a perception check.
Can I roll something higher than a 10? No, I've rolled a natural 1.
You don't hear anything. You hear seeping, dripping water.
Well,
I say we continue.
Yeah, let's go down, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, and actually saying down is actually a good description, because you notice as you're walking, it is at a decline. It's only a 3 or 4% or maybe degrees decline. You only really notice it when you get right down to the end. It seems like, whoa, actually we went a lot farther down than we thought maybe that we were going to.
I imagine when we were waiting up top and watching the lights descend,
Mhm.
it would have been
You noticed it, yeah.
noticeable at that
hmm
point too.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so we go through the waterfall, I guess.
Okay. So you go through the waterfall and you go another 20 feet, and then the hall turns to your left. And then there's another 20 or 30 feet where it's 10 feet wide. And then the room opens out, and it's 20 feet wide and about 40 feet long. And the walls have been smoothed over. They're made of that clay stone muddy stuff that the rest of the temple is made of, but they've been smoothed over, and they have words and images carved all over them. At the end of the hallway, you see a set of double doors, also made of that clay stone stuff that the Haka prefer. And the words covering the walls are recognizable to you. They are those same words that you recognize from the saying with the numbers. This is the one true path, the one true way. Amethyst is the master. Shemasa Hasit, Stone Road, Long Walk, all that with all the numbers, right? But At the top it says, Shamasa, show us your bounty, which is something you've seen before but isn't part of that a description with all the words. It never says Shamasa, show us your bounty in there. And at the bottom of the entire inscription, and this inscription is all over the walls. At the bottom of it, it says something else. It says, and it's kind of carved in a different, you could tell it's carved by a different hand. And it says, bring forth your watery souls, and I will let you live again. Join me, and I will give you power beyond your dreams. Shamasa has foretold it, and it will be so. Leralak.
Okay,
Great.
awesome.
I think that answers the question as to whether that was the past or the present that we saw in the image.
Yeah.
Does anyone else find it weird that these Haka have this, and I point at the like riddled text on the walls in their temple?
I don't think they wrote it.
So
I
you
don't think
can
they did either.
you can make a perception check.
That was a 5.
I think, unfortunately for the Hawkeye, they just chose a site for their breeding chamber that happened to have other power and other uses that was in need of by someone else, some other.
You think the Haka took this temple for their use from something older?
I think that could very well be.
I mean, how old does this writing look? All these carvings look.
You can roll a perception check.
Can I join?
Can you roll one too? Sure.
16.
Okay, there we go. That's a 17.
uh,
I just wanted one good roll tonight.
yeah, this writing is fresh.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more likely that the Haka built this for their own purposes, and then
Something else. took it.
someone else moved in and took it over and repurposed it.
Well, I think regardless, we need to find out what's on the other side of that door.
With you.
The Haka said they haven't been able to reproduce in two
Couple decades.
generations.
Generations, yeah.
How much is that? Like, are we talking decades, or are we talking like?
How long do Haka live? Is the
Um,
question, I guess.
I wonder if any of you know that. They reach adulthood at 15 and they live up to 200 years.
But maybe they can't have children for a full 200 years. Maybe there's like a prime breeding period.
Well, when they told you about their reproductive issues, they made it seem like it was only after the sinking.
That was my question. Was it like was this sinking the time that they lost control of this place, or was it after the sinking?
So losing control of this place is different from them having reproductive issues, right? So you might be conflating it, and Marcel might be conflating it, but that's not necessarily a known quantity right now. All you know is they've told you they haven't been able to reproduce in 2 generations. Not that they haven't tried, but they haven't had any viable offspring.
Right.
And they're
the
afraid that
destruction we
something.
saw was fresh.
Yeah, because also remember our Haka guide was shocked to lay eyes on the temple and see that.
Yeah, and he said he had come here like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Things are
or all the
fast.
changes were in the last couple months or something like that.
Yeah.
But he said that there was something, then it was getting worse, and they realized at some point that they thought it was something in the temple that was making their incubation chambers wasn't working. And then like things started getting worse. But you know, they
more
have a
much
hard time expressing what they really right. So the confusion is kind of purposeful, right? Because you really don't know. It's really hard to tell, like, what even when Axley casts a comprehend language, all he gets is the literal translation of what they say, right?
And
So
there's a problem with long-lived races and passage of time as well.
yeah,
Oh yeah, it was just a while ago. Oh yeah,
yeah,
a while ago. Yeah,
and
it's like
you know,
5
Remember,
years.
like it was
yeah,
yesterday.
right. And some of them were alive before the sinking, right? Because the sinking is only
Yeah.
50 years old, so they know something happened, but you know, how many of them, you know, had, you know, so yeah, there are questions that you just don't know the answer to.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, mud creatures have been coming forth from this place and we're descending down into muddier and muddier depths. So I think we're
Yeah.
getting close to maybe finding the source of what has corrupted all this mud and
Mhm.
animated it.
My theory is that whatever, well, maybe this guy who took over this place has been like turned their incubation area into a either undead army creator or just mud person creator
Maybe
instead.
a little of both.
Maybe.
I'm writing down both phrases at the top and the bottom in my journal.
I
for future
posted them in
reference.
the Discord just so that you.
Awesome. And then this door in front of us. Can I push it open slowly and quietly?
It is locked.
Hey, it just so happens I might have something that will aid us here.
Have at it.
I've got the chime of opening, or what is that what it's called?
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Ding, the door open.
Yeah.
So you're going to use that?
Sure.
Okay, give me 2 seconds. La 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 la. My computer's like, what? You want me to do work? Pshaw. Oh, seriously, come
Oh.
on. Oh,
Huh. Oh. I'm looking at the writing on the walls. The amethyst is the master. That corresponds with the thing I saw in the
Look, yeah.
book.
Well, we saw that
One second.
what we're supposing is Leralak has an amethyst on his
Yeah.
helm.
Oh my god. This is bothering me so much.
okay, so you, how are you using the chime of opening?
I guess I just pointed at the lock and like I don't know what you do with the chime, like ring it or shake it. What kind of chime is it? Like
You have to, it's like a tuning fork.
tuning fork.
You have to
Okay.
strike it against something.
Okay, then I'll strike it against the lock.
Bippity boppity boo.
Okay, you hear a clear tone ring out. It's much louder than you thought.
That's
And
subtle.
but at the same time you hear 3 different clicks and shifting of different items.
3.
Yeah, 3.
Okay.
That would have been fun to pick.
Okay, I'll secure the chime.
Okay.
It's open, I believe.
And I push it open quietly and slowly.
Do you want to give me a stealth check? If you want to
Oh,
do it,
this is not my
if you want to do it
thing.
quietly.
Yeah. Not my thing. I got a 2, so a 1.
Okay. You push it open as quietly as you can. And here's what you see. I'm going to actually post a picture in the Discord, and I will post a picture on the stream for those of you that are listening along or watching along. So there's the picture in the stream. Let me post a picture in Discord if it'll do it. It's taking it a moment. So there's the picture in Discord. So let me read this to you. This is a large rectangular room. It's about roughly 60 by 90 feet. You're entering through the middle of the western wall. So there's, 30 or 40 feet to your left, 30 or 40 feet to your right. There are 4 large braziers, 10 feet from each corner of the room. They are glowing with blue flames, providing bright light to the entire room. They also provide heat, and the heat that comes out of this room is hotter than any place that you've probably ever been. The flickering light of the braziers causes shadows to form behind and around 4 thick pillars more towards the middle of the room. And those pillars are carved with the likenesses of multiple types of creatures: crabs, octopus, turtles, seahorses, squids, whales, sharks, sea anemones, sea elves, eels, fish, lutrinians, lobsters, dragon turtles, and several creatures that you don't recognize. And when you look directly at them, you see that the face of each individual takes on a visage of pain, and you get the impression of screaming. And it's hard to look at, and it's also partially obscured because when you look at the pillars, you see that there's mud running out of the mouths of all the faces on the pillars. There is a large blue coral altar sitting on 4 thick wooden stilts in the middle of the room. The stilts are protruding out of a large pool of steaming, bubbling mud. The north, south, and west walls of the chamber are carved with likenesses of multiple different types of creatures, different creatures than what's on the pillars: dogs, horses, minotaur, humans, founder races, those are, like beaver people and mole people, halflings, gnomes, bears, foxes, owlbears, lions, birds, lizards, dinosaurs. Those faces are also somewhat obscured because there is mud seeping from the eyes, mouths, and ears of the heads of each of these creatures. The mud from the pillars and the mud from the 3 walls that have carvings on them are falling to the floor and forming sludgy rivulets running down into a steaming pool of mud that's under the altar. On the eastern wall is an enormous circular area of intense blue magic, and it's giving off bright blue light and a lot of heat. And that wall is covered with writing. Laying on the large altar is a haka, and the haka is emaciated and starved and has the hands of a crab. The haka is whimpering and moaning and struggling against the bindings that are holding it down on the altar. And at the head of the altar, there is a robed figure standing and enunciating the words of what sounds like a ritual dirge. And as they are enunciating the words, the writing on the walls on the eastern wall starts glowing. So every time it says the word, a new word glows blue. And the words follow a pattern that is very familiar to you. Mm-hmm. This is the true path, the one true way, 6174, through the brimstone, etc. Also,
oh my God, you're killing me.
What you see, you see four big mounds of mud around the altar where the stakes are driven from the altar down into the pool of mud. There's 4 big mounds of mud. Then there's the the priest who's saying things, okay, the robed figure who's saying things, there is an enormous humanoid-shaped creature made out of mud standing to the right of the big, enormous blue circle. And there is a blue-skinned goblin standing behind the robed figure, but not in the puddle of mud. So they are several feet behind the robed figure. And one last thing, coming out of the big blue circle of energy that is on the eastern wall is a howling noise that is so disheartening and disconcerting that everyone here who hears it, and that is all of you now that the door is open, must make a wisdom saving throw with a 16 DC.
Oh, I'm gonna fail this.
I'm so mad. I'm not rolling well at all. I rolled a 2. I've not rolled higher than a 10. Besides the one time.
14.
14.
Oh wait, wisdom save, I guess.
Still the same. Oh, it's cocked. Nope.
This isn't good.
Nope.
No one made it.
I'm gonna use my luck.
Okay.
To go reroll. Nope. I'm rolling like you, Nina. Two twos in a row.
I don't know. I just need another dice.
So
not working for me today.
I just uploaded a new picture, and that picture shows the size of the
pit
of the bubbling mud,
Okay.
and the rivulets of mud, sort of sewage, sludgy, muddy river leading from the pillars down to the pool of mud. So none of you succeeded on your save. Is that what I'm hearing?
Sounds like it.
You are frightened of that blue energy emanating, circular swirling, heat emanating item on the wall.
Okay. So we can't get any closer to it.
Right. And it is apparent to you that the creature that is robed and saying those words, you can see that they are almost done. Probably
Okay.
2/3 of the words are lit.
Okay, I'm gonna cast a spell.
Yeah, I think we're all getting ready to
Yep,
blast
warm
it.
it up,
that's
yeah.
exactly what
Yeah,
it
Warming up
so-
the fingers.
So everyone needs to roll initiative.
Yeah.
Everyone's just like itching to kill this guy now.
19.
Finally rolled somewhat decent, a 14.
Yeah, 15.
I got a 6.
What did Imran get?
A 14.
And Marcel got a 15.
Yes.
Yes.
And Axley got
6.
a 6. Okay. So Konos, Marcel, Imran. I have to roll initiative for these creatures. Give me 2
So
seconds.
So I'm checking my die just to make sure there is indeed a 20 on it.
Right? Same here. Same here. Okay. So I think last time I cast Shield of Faith on Axley before he walked into like the first part of the chamber,
Okay.
like last game.
What's the
So I'm assuming,
what's the duration?
I was gonna say, I'm assuming it's been longer than 10 minutes.
Oh, it has. Yes, definitely.
Has it been longer than an hour? Because I had cast Armor of Agathis on myself, like right before we came in the temple.
It's probably been more than an hour since you entered the temple. Yes, unfortunately.
Okay.
On the other hand, there's the one spot of good news is I rolled a 5 for my initiative. So,
That's
So Konos.
Okay, I'm gonna swing for the fences. Am I within 120 feet of the blue
Yes.
magical?
The
I'm
the
gonna cat.
the room is
Good.
only 60 by 90, so everybody is probably within 120 feet of everything else.
Okay. This works. This could do something really great. I'm gonna cast Dispel Magic and target the magical writing on the glowing magic on the wall. And see
You're
if
gonna
that shuts
cast
that.
Dispel Magic on the writing.
So you said there's like a magical
Mhm.
field
Yep,
on
yep.
that portion of the wall.
Yeah,
And
as
that's what,
yeah, as he's chanting the words of the ritual, it lights up and stays lit as he's like it's like you could see that if you imagine there's the writing all on the wall around the big blue portal thing, and as he's saying the words, they are starting to glow.
You just
And
have to say it's magical karaoke.
magical karaoke, yes.
Yep. And I'm gonna try to pull the plug.
Please.
So dispel magic, is that what you're doing? Okay.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah. So if this is a spell or magical effect of third level or of actually, hang on. So if it's no, actually no, it will be third level or lower. It's automatically off. Otherwise, I have to roll for it. If it's something that can be dispelled,
Yeah,
and that is the kicker.
This is where the DM has to figure out what level spell this is. If it is
Yeah.
a spell at all.
Okay, let me check something. Oh, look, I don't have my PHB. Give me 2 seconds.
That has actually come up many times with Dispel Magic because a lot of magical effects never say
Yeah, it's kind of
if it wasn't created by a spell, like how do you know what
Yeah.
level it is to
Right.
adjudicate
Yep.
what the
Yeah.
DC is?
Right.
This
Or
sounds
you've gotta
like a great topic for
Yeah.
for
Or-
D&D
or-
Brief.
Or if it's like a creature with like it's not a spell, but it's an innate magical ability that sort of resembles a spell, but
Yeah.
really isn't. It's like, oh, okay, like I said, this is either going to work remarkably well, or I just wasted my last spell slot accomplishing nothing. Fingers crossed.
It is a spell. I just have to make a decision about what they were actually casting. Which version of what they were casting. So what are the parameters of your spell? What do you have to do if it's third level or lower?
Yeah, if it's a spell that's third level or lower, the spell ends. If it's fourth level or higher, I have to roll a charisma check with the DC is 10 plus the spell level.
Okay.
If I succeed, the spell ends. Otherwise, it remains active.
Okay.
For the longest time, and because of how we were playing 4th edition first, and I don't know if we were doing it wrong there too, but we thought it was an Arcana check instead of just a straight ability check, which made it a lot easier to dispel things.
Since you're trying to dispel it, and in order to dispel it, you have to sort of get an idea of what it is.
Okay.
And because you have Bolum in your hand, I will tell you what spell it is.
Okay.
Also, it makes it possible that you might learn this spell.
Okay.
It's a gate spell.
Okay. That was my hunch.
And gate is a 9th level spell.
9th level spell, yeah. Okay.
Oh.
It's.
But wait.
Yep.
Bolum gives you advantage.
Okay. Okay. Highest roll 20.
Nice.
I got a 14
Okay.
and a 15. I got a +5 on my charisma.
Okay. Now I need you to roll me some percentage dice.
Ooh, fun
Ooh.
times. Fun.
Ooh.
I got a 10 and a 0, so I guess that's a 10.
A 10 and a 0.
10?
Yes. Yeah, it's a 10. Well, that's yes. You don't add them. It's a 10. It's a 0.
It's a 0.
10. Yes.
0 and
10,
0 is 100.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
I need you to make me a Constitution saving throw.
Oh no.
With a DC of 15.
Okay. Does Bolum give me advantage on this?
No.
I did not make 15.
Okay, you pass out. You see Konos falls to the ground unconscious.
Crap.
Oh shit.
Oh no.
Oh, man,
But the blue circular light, the howling gets louder for a second, and then you see the circle kind of grow, and then it goes and it goes down into one single pinhole, and then it winks out of existence.
And that's probably the point where I keel over.
And the howling stops. And yeah, Konos just falls down.
Okay.
And now the robed figure turns to you and throws the hood off of his cloak, and you see that it is a blue goblin. And he points at the group of you standing there with the door halfway open, and he says, "Usurpers, get them!" And the 4 muddy piles grow into these medium-sized sort of creatures with long faces and wings, and they fly up. Now, here's the thing. You were afraid of the gate, and the gate is gone. So none of you are frightened anymore.
That's fantastic. That makes things pretty good.
Yes. All right. I did one good thing in this fight.
Worth it.
Yep.
Worth it. I'll get you back up. We'll be fine.
And that was Konos' turn.
Yeah. Possibly my last turn.
I think Konos might just have saved everybody's collective butts.
I think so.
Way to go.
No
Yeah.
kidding.
MVP.
Marcel. You now have 4 muddy creatures with wings flying. You have 1 large humanoid-shaped creature that was next to what was the gate, but now there's no gate there. And then you have the goblin who just took his hood off, and you know there was a goblin behind him as well.
So the humanoid figure was the one that was chanting.
The goblin that was at the... So the goblin that
Oh.
took his hood off was the one that was chanting.
And who's the humanoid figure?
He's just made of mud.
Oh, okay. Okay, so goblin...
So you have 2 goblins, one that was chanting, one that was behind him a few feet. You have the haka laying on the altar, and then you have 4 flying mud creatures and a large humanoid-shaped mud creature that has not moved yet.
Okay.
And the words on the wall are no longer glowing.
Right. Okay. I'm gonna assume that the one that was chanting, the goblin that was chanting, is the one controlling all of this. So I'm gonna go after him.
Okay.
That was my plan to begin with, because I figured if I stop him from chanting, that'll stop the other thing. I'm going to. Oh, that's okay. I can move forward. I'm gonna move forward. This is gonna be such a bad idea. I'm gonna move forward like 15 feet.
Okay.
Towards the altar.
Okay. So just so you know, that pool of mud is difficult terrain. You have no idea how deep it is.
Hmm.
and it's bubbling, so you think it's probably hot too. Um,
Yeah, so I'll stay like 5 feet away from the
okay.
bubbling
Yep.
mass.
Okay.
But that puts me in range to. I'm gonna twin spell Witch Bolt,
Okay.
and I'm gonna aim it at the two goblins.
Okay. How close do they have to be together, or do they have to be close together?
For the twinning, I think
Mhm.
it's just within the range of the spell, which
Okay,
is 30
that's fine.
feet.
Okay.
So I think it's separate attacks for each, even
Okay.
if it's a twin spell. So that's going to be for the chanter. It'll be a 24.
Oh yeah, that hits. Was that a nat?
And
Was that a nat 20?
no,
Okay.
no, it wasn't.
Darn.
That was a 17.
Okay.
And a 17 for the second one.
Okay. The second one, it also hits.
So that's going to be. I'm casting it at second level. So
Okay.
that's going to be 2d12. That's 12 plus 6. So 18.
Okay.
No, wait, I'm thinking of the wrong spell. Sorry. Just 12.
Okay. Just 12. Okay.
I was thinking of Chaos Bolt. Yeah, so just 12 damage for both of them.
Okay.
That's lightning damage.
Just 12 damage for both of them. Just.
Just 12.
Yeah, just 12. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Imran.
Okay, so did Konos like drop to 0 hit points?
You have no idea. All you know is he passed out. He just fell down.
Okay. Okay, first off, I'm gonna cast Spiritual Weapon.
Okay.
How far can I actually do? I can cast it 60 feet away from me.
Okay.
Can I get near anything? One of the mud things?
Yeah, so the room is only
Oh, okay.
60 feet wide by 90 feet long,
Gotcha.
and the majority of things are actually within 50 feet because they all basically started by those pillars.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm gonna actually aim it at the guy casting, or
The chanter.
priest.
Okay.
Yeah, the chanter. Aim it right above his head.
Okay. Does he make a save or do you make an attack?
I make an attack.
Okay.
8. Yes. That's a 22 to hit.
That hits.
And that is...
See, we were keeping all the high rolls for the battle.
Yeah, we got all the bad ones out of the way.
Sure, that's
on
what we'll go with.
non-essential stuff.
Okay. That's 11 damage.
Okay.
Nice.
And then that was my bonus action, so my action, I'm gonna cast Cure Wounds on Konos because he just collapsed at my feet.
Okay.
And I guess you restore 8 hit points if that works.
Konos, you wake up.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Way to go, champ.
That howling sound is in your head. You hear it.
Oh boy.
It's almost like a tinnitus. It's in your ears. You know it's not something that you're doing. It's just there. And it is causing you to suffer what amount to the effects of a level of exhaustion. Also, you know how to cast Gate.
Okay. Thank you, Todd Kenrick.
Bolin wants you to cast Gate.
Right now?
Yeah, Bolin says we need to go get that. We need to go through that gate. But it's still Imran's turn.
Actually, I'm probably gonna stay kind of near Konos because I'm probably gonna give him a little more of a boost
Okay.
next time around.
Axley?
Yeah, I'm just gonna stay put.
Okay.
So am I at just 8 hit points then?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to yell out to Marcel, now might be a good time for our watery friend to make an appearance. I am going. So both those goblins are still on their feet.
Yes.
What do they look like they're doing? Like what are they doing in response to being hit?
The one who called you all usurpers is still pointing and saying, "Get them! Get them!"
Okay, I am going to yell the word "caught" and hurl my little cage at the goblin in the cloak.
The
yelling.
okay, the one that's yelling. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let me. Now I have to get my other notes.
So I believe I have to make a ranged attack roll.
Yeah, give me 2 seconds.
Oh, no. Go.
Yes, go ahead and make your attack roll.
With dexterity modifier. Okay. All right. Come on, let's see that 20. I know it's on this side. Okay, that would be
No.
a total of 11. However, if that doesn't hit, I could use my luck to reroll.
Well, actually, as you throw that thing out,
Mhm.
it opens up and forms into the shape of a cage. And as it gets closer to the creature, it opens and changes from the shape of a cage to exactly match the size and shape of the goblin. And then it hits the goblin. So the best way to explain this is, you know how like on old cartoons they would have the person running and then they would run through the wall, and then what the hole in the wall would be like the shape of them, like stopped running, right? That's kind of what it did. And then it completely covers the goblin and it turns a rusty red color. So you see the goblin glowing around the goblin is a rusty red color. And apparently it is restrained.
Okay.
Now, is that an action or is that a bonus action? That is a regular action.
Okay.
Is there anything else you would like to do?
Well, so that breaks my invisibility, correct? Because it's technically an attack.
Yes, that is true. You had to make an
Okay.
attack roll, so that breaks your invisibility.
I want to move away from the mud creatures. So
The creature that you just caged says, "You dirty human! I will get you!"
He's not a human.
Yeah, but the goblin is a ridiculous thing.
I just make that comment middle of it. Not a human.
I'm gonna yell out, "I'm right here! Come get me! What's stopping you?"
Anything else? Are you going to move?
Yeah, I'm moving away from the mud creatures.
Okay.
So I really don't have a whole lot that I can do.
So, what direction would you like to go? Are you going in the room, or are you going to go back in the hallway? Because that door is still.
Room. I'll go over
open.
by one of the columns to kind of take cover.
Okay. North, south, east, or west?
I'll go to the south one, the
Okay.
southwest one.
Okay, southwest column. Okay. All right, and now it's the creature's turn. The one who called you usurpers is really mad, and
That's right.
he's you could see him trying to struggle, like he's trying to struggle out, and it looks he can't even move. He's just sort of held. And he says, "Grunt, grunt."